Welcome to part 2 in this bar chord training series. I really hope that you enjoyed the first video. Thank you for your feedback, thank you for your comments on that video. It means the world to us to see that the work that we all do here is actually helping you guys, so thank you very much for your feedback. If you haven't watched video 1 yet, I'd urge you to go back and check it out, just to have a quick recap of what we covered in that video. We basically covered all the fundamentals, bar chord fundamentals, what are bar chords, how do they work, what is the cage system. We looked at E-shaped bar chords, we looked at power chords, and probably most importantly of all, we really dug into the bar chord technique of how your fingers need to be, and I shared some of my best tips for you for tightening up your bar chord changes. And we also shared some tips from our students for things that have worked really well for them. So if you didn't watch video 1, please go and check it out. It'll really make sure that there's no kind of important holes in your bar chord knowledge. It gives you a good foundation and a good base. In today's video, I've got loads of cool stuff to share with you. First of all, I wanted to address one of the comments that somebody left where they mentioned about struggling with the F chord. Now, this is just a quick tip that I just wanted to throw out there, because for most people, it's the first bar chord that they actually come across. It looks like this. Now, I just wanted to make something really clear to you here, and that is that F chord, that's actually one of the hardest bar chords to play, because we have the nut here, which is holding the strings up. And that's actually one of the hardest places to actually make a bar on the first fret. So if you're practicing bar chords, it's actually best not to practice them there, because that's one of the hardest places on the whole neck to cleanly make a bar chord. If you practice on the 5th fret, as an A chord, for example, that's actually much easier to play. Or basically anywhere, apart from the 1st fret. When you're struggling with that F chord, in the meantime, the best alternative is an F major 7. Now, it's a little bit thin, of course, compared to a full F chord, but it is a cool sounding F chord that you can use. And if you want to play a full F or a full F major chord, then if you press those two down together and those two, then that's an F major chord. Again, a little bit thin, not as powerful as a full F bar, but it will get you by. Okay, let's talk about movable A shapes. In video 1, we spoke about the cage system, how there's 5 different types of bar chords: C shapes, A shapes, G shapes, E shapes, and D shapes. Caged, that's how we remember it. That's an acronym that we use to remember those 5 movable shapes. In the last video, we looked at E shapes. Today, we're looking at A shapes. Now, A shapes are, along with E shapes, they're the most common bar chords. These are bar chord shapes that guitarists use all the time. So really, you can't really call yourself a guitarist unless you can play A shapes. Once you reach the point where you can comfortably play E shape and A shape bar chords, that's the moment when you can say that you are a guitarist. You're an intermediate guitarist, you're no longer a novice. So let's whiz through the most common A chord shapes. Okay, so the major A chord shape, we're going to play them here on the 5th fret. So the major A chord shape looks like this. Yeah, it's a nice and bright and happy tone. It's optimistic, it's positive, like all major chords are, no matter what shape we use and no matter where we play them on the fret. Next is our minor shape. More dark, interesting, introspective. Now let's look at a 7th shape. Hope you can see that okay, yeah? So that would be an A7 shape down here. Yeah, just with these 2 fingers. But because we're applying the bar on the 5th fret, what chord is that now? Any ideas? It's actually a D7 chord that we're playing now. Okay, now let's look at a minor 7 shape, one of my favourite shapes of all. I just think it's a lovely, well-balanced chord. That's one of my all-time favourite chord shapes. Okay, now let's look at a major 7 shape. Beautiful, dreamy, rich chord. All of those shapes that we've just shared there are quite common. They crop up all the time in popular music. The next 3 shapes I'm going to share with you are a bit more niche. They don't crop up quite so much. Okay, here's the augmented A shape. It's a really dissonant chord. Now let's look at a diminished shape. Lots of tension in that dark, diminished tone. And lastly, let's look at a minor 7 flat 5. It's a really interesting and complex chord tone, that one. Check out this chord progression and see if you can, notice what the minor 7 flat 5 adds to the progression. You know, I'd argue that it's the minor 7 flat 5 in there that really makes that progression work. Okay, so that was just a quick whiz through all of the most common A shapes there. We had the major shape, the minor shape, we also, which are obviously cornerstones of all music. Then we had the minor 7, the major 7, and just the standard 7, all of which are also very common. And then we had 3 more niche and unusual chord shapes: augmented, diminished, and the minor 7 flat 5. Okay, let's look more closely at the technique of making those A shapes. Okay, when we make A shapes, first of all, the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they bar all 6 strings, which isn't needed. When we're playing A shapes, we only need to bar 5 strings, so we can just drop that finger down immediately. The second mistake most people make is that they think they need to press down all 5 strings, which isn't the case. These 3 fingers are going to be here, playing this. So these 3 strings are being fretted by these 3 fingers, which means the only strings we need to fret here are here, the 5th fret, and here on the 1st fret. So it's just the top string and the bottom string in this bar that actually need to be pressed down. These 3 here are taking care of those 3 strings. So these 3 here, they're redundant. We don't need to press down on them. Now also notice that my finger isn't like this. My index finger is slightly rolled back and it's curved, and that makes it easier for me to press down on those strings in a comfortable way. Okay, the other point to make is that as we move up the fretboard, the distance between the frets gets thinner and thinner as we move up the neck. So as I move higher up the neck, it's just too uncomfortable for me to play in that way. So what I do is I play like this. I just get rid of those 3 fingers completely, and I use my ring finger to press down on those 3 strings, and I just raise it slightly at the bottom. If I'm down here and I'm in a bit of a rush, then sometimes if I don't have much time for a chord change, sometimes I'll even just play with my little finger. So don't feel like it's enshrined in stone, you know, that we have to play a bar chord, an A-shaped bar chord with these 3 fingers, because that's not the case. As guitarists, we alter our fingerings all the time, depending on where we're coming from and where we're going to next. Try using your little finger, try using your ring finger as well. Play around with that, get creative, see what works for you, see what feels comfortable. The anatomy of people's hands is quite different from person to person, so play around with that, see what works for you. And like I said, be prepared to alter the fingerings that you use depending on whereabouts you are on the neck. Down here, the frets are quite big, we've got quite a lot of space to cover. Up here, things are really tight and there isn't much room to move, so we have to be creative. Okay, I hope you found that useful there, to look carefully there at the A-shaped bar chord technique. Next, I wanted to discuss how to practice bar chords in a way that's fun, but actually, you know, gets results and sees you improving as a guitarist, getting better dexterity, control, strength in your fingers, being more accurate, being able to change chords quickly, target fast bar chord changes in different chord voicings. How do we get there? Okay, I'm going to break it down for you. Let me grab the iPad and I'll talk you through the framework that I advise you use. Okay, no, I didn't misspell practice. I'm British, so I use an S. Okay, so let's begin over here. So let's imagine that you know a song and you play it with open chords. Okay, and let's say that the verse to that song is G to C, G to D. So let's say that that's a song that you already know, and the purpose of this really is we want to use songs that you already know and then practice them with bar chords, and then that way you're using all the stuff you've already learned about that song, the vibe, the timing, the feel, the timing of the chord changes. You're using all of that stuff that you've already learned to make it easier for you to use the bar chords. Okay, so let's say that the song is G, C, G, D. Okay, so the first step is to turn those open chords into power chords. Now, if you're just getting started with bar chords, then this is perfect. So instead of playing a G, you'll play a G5. Instead of playing a C, you'll play a C5. G5, D5. Now, we covered power chords in quite a bit of detail in video 1, so if you're not sure what this is, go back and check out that section of video 1. So now you're practicing the song as G5, C5, G, D5, and D5. Okay, so you were practicing it like this. Yeah, you were playing everything in open chords. But now you're playing it like this. You can either play it like that, just with those two, or with those three if you prefer. Yeah, so what we're doing here is we're getting you moving around the fretboard. And like I say, you can just play those two fingers if you want. What we're doing as we move through this process is we're getting you to understand, okay, G, 3rd fret, 8th fret, G, 3rd fret, D, 10th fret. We're trying to get you to internalize those positions. Okay, and then once you've mastered that with the power chords, then we're going to go to what I call semi-bar chords. Now, semi-bar chords, I don't actually know what these chord names would be, but essentially what they are is they're the next step on from power chords. So if you're used to playing this hand shape, yeah, just with those three, 1, 2, 3, then now we just add on this finger here. There's no bar yet, we're not doing any barring, we're just playing those top 4. Yeah, so in our progression that we're working on here, we play G, yeah, so I hope you can see how we're kind of building this up, aren't we? So we're now playing 4 strings instead of 3. And all the time we're getting used to moving up and down the neck, successfully targeting those different notes. Okay, so once you've played those, again, I don't know what they would be called, I'm sorry about that, but I'm just going to put G5 again. I don't know what those chord shapes would be. Actually, I think they would just be major chords, wouldn't they? Because we've got the 3rd in there now. So yeah, I think it would just be G, C, G, D. Okay, now we're going to progress to play full A shape bar chords. Oh, sorry, full E shape chords. And again, now we're playing G, C, G, D. So what this looks like is we're now progressing from this G, where we just play those 4 strings, we're now playing all 6. We've added on these bottom 2. Okay, so you can see how we layered that up. Now in real time, that process that we just explained there, that might take months, you know, it might take weeks. I don't know where you're up to in your guitar journey or where you would join in on that process, but just trust me that by just building it up in stages like that, the hurdle comes much, much lower. If you just try and go from playing G's like this to this in one go, I mean, that's a high hurdle for anybody to jump. So we have to break it down and do this in smaller steps. Okay, once you're comfortable with that, or if you prefer, alongside that, it's up to you how you learn, then now we introduce the A-shaped bar chords. So we have A-shaped bar chords. Now again, the chords are obviously the same. They're just going to be G and C and G and D. But instead of playing them on the, 3rd fret, 8th fret, 3rd fret, and 10th fret, we're now going to be playing these shapes, of course, because our root note is now on the 5th string. So now we're going to be playing on 10th fret, 3rd fret, 10th, and the 5th. So let's have a look at what that looks like. Okay, so the way I've just laid it out for you there is obviously playing the full chords, but in reality you can follow the same process, the power chord process, to the semi-bar chord, to the full. So if we were playing this as full bar chords, then it would be like this. Yeah, but if you want to, you can build it up with those 2 fingers like we discussed. Exactly the same for the E shapes. Quite hard to target just those 2 though, because we have to dodge this string. You may prefer to finger pick it. One of the cool things about those power chord shapes is the chord is really condensed. you know, so you get there's a real purity to playing in fifths. And then add on that next finger, so like this. See that okay? And then you can add on the third finger. Again, we're following the same process. So. Okay, I hope that that was helpful to give you some context for how we build that up. Now it's up to you if you prefer to, if you want to conquer E shapes before you even tackle the A shapes, then that's fine. You know, lots of people I know prefer to learn that way. I actually think that's probably best. But if you want to tackle the A shapes alongside the E shapes, I also think that's cool because it's getting you, again, it's making you more versatile as a musician. So I don't actually mind if you want to do it, learn E shapes and A shapes alongside one another. But I think overall it's probably easier to just focus completely on E shapes. Okay, and the last part of this process is that we can mix these together. And this is where we want to get to in the end. So I want you to be able to play, for example, let's say, maybe we play that G, but then maybe we play an E-shaped C, for argument's sake. Maybe we then play the G here, and then this D there. So you can see that we're combining E shapes and A shapes, mixing them up on the fly. Let's have a look at what that would look like. What I'd like you to notice here is the way that these chords, you know, like this is a G, and this is a G. But they sound almost completely different, don't they? You can hear that they're both major chords. Okay, they're both Gs, you can tell that, but the voicing is different. This one is more growly. It's got more low end. This one sounds sweeter. So there's a time and a place for different voicings. We don't want you to just know one G. We want you to know a variety of different Gs, and you can choose the right one. It's almost like these things are different tools, you know, in your toolkit, and you just pick out the one that you want when you need it. Okay, so in the example that we just showed before, we started off playing the A-shaped G up here, and then we went to this C, back to this G. Let's try that again. Can you hear how we've altered the nature of these chords has kind of changed? It's really cool to me that you can be playing the exact same notes but just in a different location, and all of a sudden there's a different flavour to the chord. Okay, so where we ended up at the end of that last exercise is a place where you're combining and mixing in between A shapes and E shapes, and that's where we want to get to. You know, that's the next, you know, step for you as a guitarist, is being able to play bar chords confidently and being able to select whether the chord that you need, maybe it's best as an E shape, maybe it's best as an A shape, or maybe it's best to keep it as an open shape. There's lots of things that will help you make that decision, but we want you to have those options. Okay, I've just left the studio to go and get some lunch, but I thought what I'd do is basically set up what we're going to do next. So when I get back to the studio, I'm going to show you how to blend bar chords with lead guitar. Now this is something that is the holy grail for a lot of people, because they get to, it sounds really musical when you drop a chord and then go and play a little bit of a small lead line or a melody, you know, just like a single note melody, because it makes your playing more expressive, more fluid, it looks cooler, it sounds cooler, and also then you really start to feel like you're doing it, you know, you feel like you're all over the whole neck rather than, you know, just playing rhythm guitar or lead guitar. You're blending both of those things together to create something that's much more musical and interesting. So yeah, I'm going to grab some lunch and then head back to the studio. We'll look at how to blend E-shaped bar chords together with lead, and then we'll also look at how we blend A-shaped chords together with lead guitar. Okay, lastly, I wanted to give you some ideas for how you blend lead guitar with bar chords when you're playing them. Now this is quite, you know, it's a relatively advanced technique that I'm going to share, so if you're a beginner guitarist, feel free to skip this, but hopefully if you've already got a feel for bar chords, hopefully this will help you out. Being able to blend lead guitar with chords is the holy grail for a lot of guitarists, because you feel that what you're playing is more fluid and interesting. Okay, so the trick to this is it's visualizing the scale boxes underneath the chord and knowing where one thing is in relation to one another. So if you're playing something, let's say you're playing an A, yeah, then the major pentatonic, it's an A major chord. So the major pentatonic scale that is in that box position will work well for that. Also, this note always works well for major. Yeah, so see the hammer on okay? Those always work well. And this note here. So you can combine them in any way you want. It always sounds good. So for major chords, you've got that hammer on there. You've got this one here. Yeah. But a really useful one to know is that this note here, the root note of your major chord, is kind of the top box of the minor pentatonic, which is 3 frets lower. Okay, so if you imagine that note there from your A chord, that one, that's also that one from that, you know, minor pentatonic box 1. So you can play and then drop down here. Yeah, all of the licks that you might know in the minor pentatonic box, you can play all of them there. Just know it's 3 frets lower. If you're playing a major chord, let's say you were playing, a minor chord, let's say you were playing B minor, yeah, then you can just use the minor pentatonic box that's there over that chord. Yeah. Yeah, that's already there for you. Okay, I'm sorry if you're a beginner guitarist, that last part was really like overwhelming, it must have been, but I always like to include some more advanced stuff here for the guitarists who are a bit further along the journey and want something a bit more challenging that they can get stuck into. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this second video in this bar chords training series. It's been lots of fun to put this together for you. I hope that you got a lot out of it, that you've learned lots of new things, new ideas, new techniques, new suggestions, new chord voicings, whatever it might be for you. I hope you've enjoyed it. We're about to open the doors for our course, Bar Chord Secrets. I'm super excited. This course has been so much fun to create here in the new studio, and it's absolutely jam-packed with bar chord material to help you master bar chords for once and for all. Remember, bar chords it's a kind of threshold moment for a guitarist. Once you can play bar chords, that's when you become an intermediate guitarist. That's the moment where you're no longer a novice guitarist and you can say, I am a guitarist, yes, I can play guitar. You can feel like, you've made it. So this is something that people have been asking me to make for years. I finally got around to it. It's been a labor of love, and I really hope that it helps you. So watch out for the course. It's going to be available very, very soon. What I'd like you to do now, please, is please leave a comment below saying the one thing that you would like to learn inside Bar Chord Secrets. What's the main thing that's holding you back as a guitarist from being able to play bar chords? Please let us know in the comments below.